keep your emotions off the internet. That right there is going to be the theme of this broadcast, the theme of this Radio Go edition here of Mic Drop on Pittsburgh Sports Live, and this Steelers chat version of Mic Drop on Pittsburgh Sports Live. This Steelers chat coming at you from the Beaver County Auto Studios. There's the sign right behind me, up above Market Square here in downtown Pittsburgh, and brought to you by SteelersNow.com, the new venture here within the Pittsburgh Sports Now family, SteelersNow.com. I am your host, Mike Asti, and there it is there, at Mike Asti 11. You can find me on Twitter. You can provide the positivity. You can pat me on the back. You can also send me the hate mail there. I get it all at Mike Asti 11 on Twitter. But JuJu said it best. He said it on his little tweet. Antonio Brown also put it out there, and they both may have actually copied off of Wiz Khalifa, but keep your emotions off the internet. That right there kind of says it all and maybe would have made things better for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it wasn't, and it's going to allow us to have more of these kind of shows, more of the watching the train wreck. We're still close to the NFL draft. We'll get you more draft coverage. There's tons of it over there, SteelersNow.com, and I've even done some draft shows and what the Steelers need and who are some targets. All that's over there, SteelersNow.com. But for the purpose of this particular broadcast, we can't avoid it. It was the topic of the week yet again, and it is more drama around the Pittsburgh Steelers, or actually not really around the Steelers. It is around the former players. And it all started with Antonio Brown out of nowhere attacking JuJu. But what this is going to mean for this show and what I'm going to kind of touch on here is the fact that Steeler fans need to stop grouping the Antonio Brown drama and how Antonio Brown acts with Le'Veon Bell and the Le'Veon Bell saga of several years. They're both former Steelers. You go to the Strip District, you can buy Jag-Off shirts for both of them. They're both kind of hated and ire of Steeler fans, and there's a lot of negativity surrounding both. They both feel like, Steeler fans feel like they both forced their way out of town. And I've done past shows and I've articulated this, and here it is. Le'Veon Bell betted himself and lost. Le'Veon Bell betted himself and lost. That's true. Antonio Brown won the drama with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like it or not, Antonio Brown won his drama with the Steelers. He did. He got more money, got a better deal, restructured his own deal, got on a new team. He kind of got what he wanted. But they're not the same. They need to stop being treated as the same. I'll take you through it and also answer any questions you guys may have there in the chat. We had some activity last time we did this, so we'll see if that happens again. If not, though, I'll just go with a normal mic drop and give you my hot takes here that you can absorb or you can ignore. But either way, if you're consuming, you're helping us at Pittsburgh Sports Live. And again, there, as the graphic shows below me, subscribe on Pittsburgh Sports Live on YouTube. Make it easier for us to get this content to you, and keep on doing this as well here in the Beaver County Auto Studios. But Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown need to stop being treated the same. Steeler fans need to stop grouping these guys the same and acting as if these things are the same. And it's really evident this week more than ever. They're both former Steelers. One got a new deal, got more money on his new team and kind of won the drama. The other sat out a whole year, tried to preserve himself, lost money because he didn't sign the franchise tag, didn't get more money, in fact signed a deal that was worse than what the Steelers initially offered him, and now is a member of the New York Jets. They both seem happy. One of them's showing a lot more, though, and seems also a lot more mentally stable. Let's go through it. Well, this is kind of why I'm here. Antonio Brown, his crazy mind, thought out of nowhere, really, that he would win his little war of words with JuJu Smith-Schuster. He now will be third-year member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who in his first 2 years continuously ascended and arguably had a better year than AB last year. It is arguable because AB had a great year, even though less than his normal production, with 15-plus touchdowns, 100-plus receptions again, 1,200 plus yards. It's less than what he's done in the past in terms of per game. And there were some off games he's had, but another great year, really. AB, though, more yards and clearly became a number one type of receiver, even though now he will have to deal with double coverage that AB took last year. But he thought he'd win there by screenshotting and slamming up there on his Instagram with his millions of followers a DM that a young JuJu, who's still young even for me, but a younger JuJu back in his college days at USC sent him in a private DM to try to get ahead, to try to learn from then, and for my money still, the best receiver in the National Football League, so somebody having success doing it as a professional very, very well, and actually someone who came from humble beginnings like JuJu, but somebody who did not go to a USC or a major college, going to a much smaller school, a mid-major, and having to come up as a late-round draft pick. JuJu, a highly touted recruit out of high school, gets to USC, emerges there, and then gets a solid draft slot for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not the same, really, but he looked up to Antonio Brown's progression and how great Antonio Brown became and how Antonio Brown worked there, because many have articulated that his work ethic is second to none in terms of his actual work of his craft. And there it is. Somebody finally gets on the chat. Their AB wanted out of the Steelers when Ben Roethlisberger wanted JuJu as the prime receiver. And you know what? That actually that's a narrative that's out there, and I'm not going to by any means use this as a way to absolve Big Ben. I'm not going to absolve Big Ben and say Big Ben is the victim here and Big Ben did nothing wrong. Big Ben goes on his radio shows and throws haymakers or jabs, right crosses, at his teammates all the time. He's an egomaniac. He loves the media to be talking about him, whether he says it or not. That was what his whole retirement, or may not happen, of a couple years ago was about. Big Ben is an egomaniac. Similar to these guys, he keeps it more collected and does keep his emotions off the internet, unlike them, which is a plus. But he is the franchise quarterback, so obviously the Steelers are going to handle him differently because he's a quarterback, their receiver or running back. The quarterback is obviously going to get more respect from his franchise. That's just how it works now in the NFL. It's a quarterback-driven league. But Big Ben, he's always talked about wanting a tall receiver. He's wanted a tall receiver since losing Plesko Burress at the beginning of his career. And it isn't that he made JuJu the prime receiver. You could argue the fact that the teammates voted JuJu as the team MVP, which, again, is part of this here. That's what sparked AB initially going at JuJu on a reply to this tweet from somebody else, not JuJu. So JuJu didn't really start this. AB kind of picked at him for no reason. You could argue, again, not mentally stable, but JuJu was voted team MVP. Had a great year. Second year in the league, got better. There was no sophomore slump. And Antonio Brown brought up the fact that he fumbled and helped cost them the playoff berth at the end of the year, which is a little bit crazy. Although true, it certainly didn't help. And you got to hold him to the level of accountability. You can't fumble in those type of big games. However, they got upset game after game and tied the Browns before Baker, lost to the Raiders, lost a 16-point lead to the Chargers, lost to the Broncos. I mean, you win any of those games, it would have been a postseason team regardless of that fumble. But that was more of the entire team collective voting JuJu team MVP. Again, that's not enough right there for me to believe that that's what took us from stability to insanity, okay? This was building for year after year, and some former teammates have said about Antonio Brown that he was a bit of a loose cannon, was an egomaniac, and once he got his money, that's what Ryan Clark said, this is what Jeff Reed told me on my Trib show a year ago, they weren't surprised this would get out of control, and he would be uncontrollable, and he wanted more money. He wanted his contract restructured, which the Steelers, nor any team, were going to do. The Steelers, Patriots, whoever, no one would restructure a deal and rip it up in the middle off a great player, no matter what. I mean, you're just not going to do that, no matter what his age and what he's producing. And it was worse than the year before, despite grade. But it happened. He got a new deal. He got it ripped up, got more money with the Raiders. He found someone out there to do it. And that's what he really wanted in all this. He just went about it in an incredibly unprofessional, crazy, lunatic, mentally unstable fashion. But I don't believe that Big Ben, out of nowhere, made him the primary receivers. He wants to win games and wants to get his numbers just like anybody else. Ben wants his stats like they want their stats. Trust me, that's the Ben ego coming in. Ben was forced to make JuJu, you could argue, the number one receiver in games, or give him all those yards that he picked up last year, which is to credit to JuJu, but he was forced to utilize him as that number one threat in certain games and allow his stats to maybe arguably be better than AB a season ago because Antonio Brown was double covered every game. Antonio Brown was the top receiver going into the year and been on the Steelers, best in the game. That's why he was double covered. So they made it easier and allowed JuJu to be more wide open. And of course then, that allowed him to get his and have an easier time catching the football. Now, back to the connection to Le'Veon Bell. Because again, Antonio Brown is on a new team. Antonio Brown got more money. Antonio Brown got his deal ripped up. He got what he wanted, and he won his drama with the Steelers. It was insane. He ignored the team, ignored the owner for months, quit on his team in week 17. It was awful. And you guys all know about it, so I don't need to go over it here again. If you want more of my takes on the whole thing, Pittsburgh Sports Live, Mic Drop, search there. It's all there for you, as well as SteelersNow.com. But these outbursts here, the throwing JuJu under the bus with a screenshot, which makes JuJu gain fans, in fact makes Antonio Brown look worse, makes JuJu look like a professional who was trying to learn prior to getting the money and was somebody that was in college and still almost trying to learn from the best and trying to seek advice to somebody who was further ahead in the career he is pursuing. Nothing wrong with that. I've done it. We've all done it. People have done it with me at this point in my career. That's not enough to criticize him. And in fact, JuJu's been a guy that I'll admit I've been annoyed by some of his social media antics in the past. But here, this almost makes him look better. There it is, shaking my head. Never argue with a fool. Onlookers may not be able to tell the difference. It's a Mark Twain quote, and he threw that up there. And honestly, JuJu, I will tell you, I love those fool quotes. Verntress Russell as well. I got one of those on all over my social media. But I think we can tell the difference here. I think it's pretty clear where the difference is here. And then here's JuJu's direct response to Antonio Brown's comments about him out of seemingly nowhere. All I ever did was show that man love and respect from the moment I got to the league. I was genuinely happy for him, too, when he got traded to Oakland with a big contract, and now he takes shots at me on social media. Again, makes no sense. Throw the emoji there with my hands up in the air. Out of nowhere, attacking JuJu. He got his money. He got what he wanted. And he's attacking a guy who's yet to get his big deal and attacking a guy who, regardless if he is even towing the company line, if you're going to argue that JuJu's been towing the company line and that's why he protects Ben and Tomlin, that's what AB kind of has been saying. Okay, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'll tell you right now, say that's 100% accurate for the sake of this crazy argument. Why does that then garner him to be tossed under the bus? Why do you really even have a problem with that? Because you're so obsessed with your money, you understand that you want your money in a short shelf life, which again will get us to Le'Veon Bell in a second, because that was all about money, even though some misunderstood that. For a guy who's still trying to get his. If prior to getting his contract, which you, by the way, received a big contract years ago and now had that ripped up and got even more money now, but unlike Le'Veon Bell, it wasn't like you didn't have a big contract. They picked you over Bell to give a mega deal just a couple years ago. If he threw his team under the bus, threw his quarterback under the bus, and wanted to act a fool like you are now, he wouldn't get a big contract. It would become a problem for him. You'd be then messing with his money. So if he's towing the company line to make sure he gets his money eventually, there's no way to have any problem with that. That would just be crazy. Again, you might be crazy, so wouldn't be shocking if you're crazy. But Le'Veon Bell, in contrast to the insanity of Antonio Brown, who goes after ex-teammates, goes after guys that may look up to him or probably now did look up to him in past tense. Hopefully JuJu kind of let that go away. But unlike Antonio Brown, who to get what he wanted, and he did get it, he had to throw everybody else under the bus. He had to blame everybody else, whether it be the Rooneys who paid him a deal, who paid him a mega deal, who gave him the money he wanted at the time, whether it be his coach who has really allowed him to do whatever he wanted and stood up with it for him and didn't punish him after the Facebook Live of years ago in the playoffs and gave him a lot more rope than many other coaches would have. Or even his quarterback who, yes, maybe takes shots at them in the media, and he took shots at AB too on his radio show last year, but he blames everybody else and takes shots at everybody else, and JuJu, who said nothing against him and did, as he said, congratulate him and actually felt happy for him, and he publicly previously, during the whole AB drama, defended AB and said that's his business. So he was respecting Antonio Brown there. But he threw everybody else in the bus, blamed everybody else, unlike Le'Veon Bell, for example. Unlike Le'Veon Bell. Who here, in contrast to AB throwing JuJu under the bus, blasting a screenshot from a DM of years ago and him looking for advice while he was in college, this is Le'Veon Bell right here, throwing, and maybe it was to make this juxtaposition of the situation. I don't know his intention here, but nothing wrong with this, as long as James Conner clears it. And he does say here, I usually don't post private conversations, but this text just hit me so differently. I love you to death, bro. And then mentions James Conner. So this isn't a at me bro situation. This isn't a subtweet like Antonio Brown. If you look here, not only do you see no mentioning or no tagging of JuJu here, just blasting him and thinking this somehow made him look worse while he was asking for advice from a professional. But you go here, there's no at Team JuJu. He didn't at JuJu in that tweet. That's a quote tweet where he was throwing him under the bus off something somebody else said, out of nowhere attacking JuJu. But here's Le'Veon Bell again. I don't usually post private conversations, but this hit me so differently. I love you to death, bro. And then this is a text from James Conner, former Pitt product, who was able to emerge and was able to play relatively well at Pro Bowl level when healthy. He had his spotty games, but played higher than most people's expectations, filling in for Le'Veon Bell last year, in which Le'Veon Bell received a text from James Conner congratulating him on his situation with the Jets, wishing him well, hoping they can still connect and be friends, hoping they're still cool, and wanting to keep the mentorship alive. And I'll actually corroborate that with the fact that all through last season, while we were waiting for Le'Veon Bell, and a lot of our coverage and questions to Mike Tomlin, I was at all those press conferences and at the Steelers facility, were about when Le'Veon Bell is going to show up. What are your thoughts on Le'Veon Bell, especially in Week 10? Do you feel hurt by this? And we would ask James Conner to contact with Le'Veon Bell. Have you talked with him? What's been going on? Do you relish the opportunity but feel slighted by him? The offensive line eventually did speak out against Bell, feeling like he lied to them because they didn't feel like he would actually miss games or miss as many games as he missed. And Bell later said he thought he would come back in Week 10, but then it got too crazy, ended up missing the entire year. Didn't get the 14.5 franchise tag, so his new deal with the Jets, in which he signed a worse deal than the Steelers initially offered him. A little bit more guaranteed money, but an overall worse deal. You can't argue that. It's a worse deal. And also losing out on the 14.5. But James Conner would say all last year that Le'Veon Bell and him, they don't talk all the time, of course, but they're totally cool. He understands what Le'Veon Bell's doing. He understands it's about money. He's not trying to get in his pockets. He respects him still thinks they're friends, still thinks they're cool. Le'Veon Bell mentored him the year prior, said he was always professional with him the year prior, and they have no problem whatsoever. James Conner would try to deflect, did not want any issues to arise between him and Le'Veon Bell. And Le'Veon Bell, this is again why he's different than Antonio Brown. Le'Veon Bell didn't talk about the Steelers negatively last year. He'd live tweet some games. That was funny. But mostly positive things about James Conner playing well, even going to Week 1 out of nowhere. James Conner over 100 yards, several touchdowns, fumbled, but that tie with the Browns, he played really, really well out of nowhere in that game in place of Bell, and that was a big question mark, more than really any game last season, on what Conner could do in place of Bell. And Bell live tweeted the whole game. thrilled to death for James Conner. Now, again, it might have been lies. It might have been a little bit sarcastic. There might be some salt in the wound there on some comments that he did kind of roll his eyes and throw up some emojis when James Conner did fumble in the one game. And he went a little bit maybe enjoying the fact that the Steelers didn't make the playoffs. I'm sure Le'Veon Bell liked secretly or sometimes outwardly the team missed the playoffs and lost some of those big games, and maybe even secretly liked the fact that they're running back the new number one in James Conner, or at least last year we know, and we got that on SteelersNow.com, that they are still searching for another running back, so it might be a co-partnership there. They're not ready to give the keys to the Cadillac to James Conner yet. Still has some things to prove. But I think Le'Veon Bell kind of liked the fact that, yeah, he had a Pro Bowl year. He likes the guy, likes the person. Who doesn't like James Conner? I'm a WVU alum, and I think James Conner is one of my favorite athletes ever based on what he's had to go through from cancer and to be drafted by the Steelers after playing for Pitt and even being from Erie, so kind of a hometown team still. But there was never any real animosity there. Le'Veon Bell might have liked the team didn't win a championship without him. Of course, any athlete would. You don't want the team to be better without you. I'm sure he's not going to be rooting for the Steelers now, neither will AB. But AB, to get what he wanted, had to throw everybody else under the bus and blame everybody else. And he's still doing it. He's the ex-girlfriend who's moved on, or claims he has, but isn't really over it, isn't really over things at all, and isn't ready to show that by any means. Whereas Le'Veon Bell, seemingly, is handling this mature, out of nowhere. But yet they're still kind of getting grouped together, still made fun of equally on Twitter, still some venom at both of them on social media. There's still the Jag-off shirts there with both of their numbers, Steeler numbers, in the Strip District. Whereas Le'Veon Bell just wanted his money, he wanted his market value. I get it sucked he missed an entire year. I get some of those teammates may have feel he abandoned them. I get you as a fan feel he abandoned you. But I still get, and I said at the time, what he was thinking. He didn't want to risk getting hurt or risk having more miles on the car that is Le'Veon Bell as a running back, because a lot of running backs basically are in car crashes every time they're tackled, more than any other position. I get why the Steelers didn't want to give him a mega deal. I mean, the shelf life for a running back, or a mega deal that he wanted at least, they offered him a mega deal. But I get why he wouldn't receive $17 million a year per year from anybody and didn't get that with the Jets. It's a position that doesn't have a long shelf life. It's a position that is a car crash every time you get tackled or really even touch the field. Every touch with the rock. It's a car crash. After you're 31, 32, you're basically done, even if you get to that point. Really, when you're 30, you're kind of washed up. There's a really short shelf life. Any moment, your career can be over. And the production's there, certainly from Bell, and it might be again with the Jets, but you do not need to have an elite running back to win a championship. Look at the Eagles a couple years ago. LeGarrette Blount was there, but running back by committee mostly. There were several guys. The Patriots, when they won, they had Blount, but also several others. The beginning part of their dynasty in the early 2000s, Kevin Falk is their main running back that they've had with the most championships with during the Brady Belichick era. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's not elite by any means. Even the Patriots last year. Not an elite running back and able to win a championship. So you don't need an elite running back to win a title. Todd Gurley, the best in the league, the comparison to Bell all the time, he did get the deal and the mega money that Bell wanted from the Steelers this whole time, and that deal may have caused him to eventually sit out because he realized what the Rams offered Todd Gurley in contrast to what the Steelers offered him, even though the Steelers deal ended up being better than what he signed with the Jets. But Todd Gurley, once he got hurt and started missing games in the playoffs, it didn't derail them really. The Rams were still able to win the NFC, still have the NFC crown, still appeared in the Super Bowl, still almost won that game in a very, very close game. And C.J. Anderson, who was on his couch, rolled off the couch, shook some chips off of him, and fresh as a daisy, goes on the field, and all of a sudden is playing at a Pro Bowl level, carrying them through the postseason. And with Todd Gurley not really getting it done, the Rams were still able to have success and move on. So they didn't have an elite running back really carry them through there, even though they were paying a guy to be an elite running back, and Gurley was that great guy throughout the regular season. So it's not necessary. And he didn't get that with the Jets. But Steelers fans hate a guy in Le'Veon Bell who lost his real saga. Okay, he didn't win the saga. He ended up signing a worse deal despite a little bit more guaranteed money with the Jets. Missed out on the 14.5 from a full season. It appears got horrendous advice from his agents. He talked about gambling on himself and winning. He gambled on himself for sure. I respect the guy for doing that, but he didn't win. Okay. He signed a worse overall deal with New York. And he never really threw anybody under the bus. He never talked smack on Mike Tomlin or Big Ben. He didn't go to the level of Antonio Brown trying to rip these guys to shreds publicly. Now that he's moved on to the Jets, because he's moved on, whether he got the deal he wanted or not, he's there. And he got a solid deal still as well for missing out on a season. And maybe will preserve himself longer and missing out. Maybe he'll have a whole other year for his career for that Jets contract. Who knows? But he's now respecting, as you'll see it here, he's now showing love and respecting former teammates and guys that looked up to him. He's now saying, James Conner, thank you for the congratulations. I hope I can still be your mentor. And I got love for you. That's the gist of that. And they're still cool. And he's taking the high road a little bit. And if that wasn't Le'Veon Bell a year ago, if that wasn't who you thought Le'Veon Bell was 2 years ago, it's at the very least Le'Veon Bell now. Le'Veon Bell is trying or appearing to, maybe not in reality, but maybe taking some different advice from his representation. But he is trying to officially move on. Put his Steelers chapter behind him. He's now a New York Jet. He got the new uniforms and all the green again that he's wearing from back in his Michigan State days. He's in New York. We're recording more albums. He's going to get studio time there, is whatever you think of his rap game. But in all seriousness, he's moved on. He's on a new team now. He has a deal that is certainly solid, even if not better than what the Steelers offered him initially, and is a decent deal for a guy that didn't play for a full year. Most other guys wouldn't even have got that deal. So we at least prove that he is still thought of as the best in the game or one of them. And he might play very, very well and have some more time left. Him and Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is actually a young quarterback that I think a lot of, even though there's still a lot of question marks with the Jets, especially defensively and receiver-wise. But they may rely on him heavily. Whether you'll like that or not remains to be seen, but he'll get a chance to have a great year next year. Well, Le'Veon Bell. And he's just handling this much better and much more maturely than Antonio Brown. And look at in contrast to blasting the screenshot of the text with James Conner, which I don't know if I'm ever with that, but he mentioned him, so he said this is happening, and he may have asked him prior. But that was all about showing love, and that was all about appreciation and keeping the relationship going as mentor and mentee. Whereas Antonio Brown, over here, he somehow thought this would make him look better, but it actually gained JuJu some fans because he blasted a screenshot from a DM JuJu sent him years ago while in college where JuJu was looking for advice from the best receiver in the NFL while he was looking to get drafted and still in college. I mean, all of us. You seek advice from the guys who've done it before you, who've done it well, and that you respect and look up to. Now, all our mentors out there, all our idols, before they're actually our mentors, we don't always get what we think we're going to get. I've experienced that too. All of us are going to experience that at one point where you idolize somebody, you think of them a certain way. They don't always deliver. They may at one point throw you under the bus. They may at one point try to go after you, attack you. It may be flipped. Somebody that you idolize may not deliver in hold up their end of the bargain. They may not be who you should be idolizing any further, and you may eventually realize that in terms of they may let you down. So JuJu's idol and the guy who mentored him early in the NFL let him down, threw him under the bus after getting the hell off the team, and it ends up making JuJu better, not AB. But that's in contrast to Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell's handled things okay. He certainly didn't do everything great, but he's on a new team. He's moved on. He's not doing that. Okay, he's not trying to throw his teammates under the bus and drag more and more drama. Antonio Brown can't get enough. Antonio Brown is addicted to the drama. He can't stop the drama with the Steelers. He's addicted to it. If he would go 5 minutes without drama with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he almost would spontaneously combust, it appears. He wants this. He needs it. He's fueled by it. And that's fine if it's going to fuel you next year on the field, but this, really, you got to grow up eventually. This is immaturity. This is mental instability. if nothing else, Antonio Brown probably needs to see a therapist, for crying out loud. I can give him the name and the number of the guy next door to us if he was still in Pittsburgh, or maybe when he'll fly over here on his way to Miami, take a little detour. We got a therapist in the next room of our studio here. My uncle actually is a therapist out in California, so he can talk to him. But he needs somebody. He needs somebody to speak to. And it's only probably going to get crazier when he goes and is a part of the Vegas move and they're the Vegas Raiders. But him and the Raiders, that's them. Bell and the Jets, that's them. But Bell realizes that and isn't bringing any more Steelers drama with him. He's trying to move on and realizes now new beginnings for him. If he didn't want to be somewhere, he's now in a new place, so that's great for him. If Antonio Brown didn't want to be somewhere, he wanted more money, he wanted a new deal, he wanted it ripped up. And he had all the other problems that he shelled out there. Well, now he's in a new spot. They did rip up the deal. They gave him more money. And he loves being a Raider from what he's saying, from all the clips with him and John Gruden. I'm sure he's going to get the ball thrown his way tons, because that's what Gruden does with wide receivers. They may not win much more, but he'll get his numbers for sure. And if they do win, he'll be involved. So he should be happy. He got everything he wanted. And as I said, and I admitted this when many of you didn't want to admit this, and I got some venom myself for saying this and being so open. I talked way back in Week 17 that once Antonio Brown didn't show up, once he missed that game, once he wouldn't take that MRI, once that whole drama erupted, and then going weeks without contacting your quarterback or contacting any teammate or contacting your owner or coach, especially who did pay you all the money at that point, unlike, say, Bell, who didn't get that deal from the Steelers, that the Steelers had to trade Antonio Brown right back then. They should have been more proactive with it. They would have got a better deal. Ended up being a third and a fifth, not even a first-round pick. The whole Buffalo mess where he basically got himself out of there. I mean, who ever know the real story, but the Bills are not going to want a guy who didn't want to be there. So if there was any validity to that deal, and there appeared to have been from trusted sources that I know, that I don't know if it directly was responsible, but certainly when he makes it clear through his agent and on social media, I don't want to be there. And again, I wouldn't want to be in Buffalo either. Somebody asked me recently in my career, what if a place, media, you can be taken away from where you are. You can be taken into another market. And I've, worked in West Virginia before coming here and had success in this market, of course, for years. But would you be interested in going to another market? Well, the opportunity is there, maybe, depending on family, personal situations and things like that, as I'm looking to build a family, and probably not now, maybe years ago. Said, they brought up, well, what about Buffalo? What if Buffalo calls you? Just hypothetically. And I said, like Antonio Brown, I wouldn't want to be in Buffalo. Okay, I understand that. I wouldn't want to be in Buffalo either. Somebody brought up and made a comment about Buffalo. If my career took me to Buffalo. Well, no, I would not want to go to Buffalo. Okay, it snows all the time. It's a worse city. It offers similar to what Pittsburgh and Cleveland offers, but way worse weather and less of it. So... and it's cursing, and there's a curse there. There's been no championships, the 4 straight Super Bowl losses, the Buffalo Sabres and their playoff drought and the mess they now are, and then Brett Hull's foot in the crease and losing the 99 Stanley Cup, and that's basically it. A lot of them are Yankee fans. You got that going for you, but there's a curse of sports teams. You have less things going on. The weather's horrendous. You're almost in Canada. It's not like the rest of New York at all. It's more like Syracuse, which is New York, but... that's one thing for college, but it's not. It's a whole other ball of wax for Western Canada and a life. So, no, I wouldn't want to be in Buffalo either. I do everything I can not to be in Buffalo, too. But Antonio Brown didn't want to be there, so the Bills didn't want him. Okay, ruin that. Might have been a better offer than what eventually was offered by the Raiders. And the Steelers were eventually forced to take whatever kind of deal, because Antonio Brown just kept acting like a fool and a buffoon and a lunatic more and more each day. Got worse and worse each day. And as I said on past shows, the longer he was there, the worse it was going to be. And they eventually were forced to do things and forced to speed up the process on trading him, and should have done it weeks and months prior to that and realized this was irreconcilable. But they flew to Florida and tried to reconcile things. They did whatever they had to do to try to repair things with him and handle things maturely. And he kept on spitting on them, disrespecting them, and making it clear he didn't want them as the bitter ex-girlfriend. Now he's on a new team, still can't stop with them, still obsessed with them, hasn't really moved on. Whereas Le'Veon Bell, okay, he sat out a year. Didn't sign a franchise tag, lost money there, took a big risk for himself, his family, and his personal, and ends up signing a worse deal, but does get out of town, does get a decent deal somewhere else in New York. Likes it being there, maybe better for his whole life and career outside the NFL. As I have to roll my eyes on the rap. You can hear those on his SoundCloud, guys. But he's not bothering with the team anymore. It's over. And yet Antonio Brown just can't get enough. Now, last time I did this, got a lot more activity, I will say, in the chat. Not as much here today, but it's kind of on a little bit of a midweek dead period, so I get it. Got some questions, though, and hopefully throughout what I've expressed here during the show, I kind of was able to cover it all. Depending on how these go, we'll try to do more Steelers chats, maybe once every couple weeks, maybe once a month at the very minimum, based on what's going on in the news. Certainly, as we get closer to the draft, and I also have some things planned for after the NFL draft, especially to recap what the Steelers did and what's going on with the team now as constructed post-2019 NFL draft. Obviously, they're still looking at a running back to couple with Connor, looking at a wide receiver clearly to replace Antonio Brown and add some protection for JuJu, who's a great future number one, if not a current number one. But it'll remains to be seen how he plays with double coverage. And it'd be nice to get somebody else there so it's not as big of a deal, and James Washington is not as heavily relied on. Need to replace a tight end with Jesse James now gone in Detroit. And then, of course, the normal defensive moves that they need to do and they need help at still have not replaced Ryan Shazier, who's still there doing box jumps, and that's wonderful, but not going to be helping them on the football field for another year at minimum. Probably never again, honestly. Happy he's living a normal life, but never again on the field in all likelihood. So they need help there at linebacker. They need still help in the secondary, even the line. This is a team that missed the playoffs. There's a lot of question marks there, and a lot of things need improved. But I have said before, especially with the Browns' improvements and with Odell there and Baker's second year and the success they now have and even their defensive help, that's going to be a good team. They're going to be the favorite potentially in the division going into the year, and it's the most pressure the Browns have ever had since coming back into the league in the late 90s and certainly of this century. This is a young team, though, and Odell being with the Giants only gave them one postseason appearance in 5 years, so there's no guarantee there that they're going to have pressure. They're going to be good. They're going to be better. They were almost a playoff team last year without Odell, so I wouldn't expect the Browns to fall off. They're going to make some noise. The Ravens are a bit different now with Suggs gone, but Earl Thomas is there. That's probably an upgrade for where they are at this point in their careers. Ingram there at running back, so that's better as well. They're different, but maybe better. But Lamar Jackson, a quarterback, is a humongous question mark. I have no confidence in him getting it done for a full year, let alone the half year he did it last year. That was maybe some mitigating circumstances that helped him. And then the Bengals are a complete mess and dumpster fire, but finally moving on for Marvin Lewis. The Steelers could easily still compete in the AFC North. There's question marks there. They want to make them better, themselves better in order to win a championship. The conference is still relatively wide open. It's another year of the Patriots, though. The defending champions, as long as Belichick and Brady are there, they're going to be a threat and going to be a favorite. But the Chargers, maybe the Raiders, if they somehow can get defensive help now with AB, and they can get Derek Carr to play well enough. The Broncos are probably still years away. I think the Jets are still years away. The Bills situation similar to that. The Chiefs are a contender again, you'd figure, but maybe losing some pieces. And Mahomes another year. He's an MVP now, but we'll see if Andy Reid can do it back-to-back years and do it again or actually get a team to a Super Bowl yet again and get further into the playoffs, not have this conference championship issue that he had with Philadelphia for so many years before finally breaking through. We will see. We will see. But the Steelers will certainly still be a contender, but have question marks in the draft and plenty more to deal with. As we wrap things up, though, there's still some activity on the chat. So, again, there's still some signs that you guys want me to keep doing these. At the very least, could help SteelersNow.com. SteelersNow.com for a shameless plug. And you're hitting up these, and they're getting viewed archived on the channel at the very least. But Jamie on the chat, he, AB, parentheses, Antonio Brown, so we're talking about AB here. He, AB, obviously has just been wanting to drop some negative thoughts about JuJu as his ego can't take the lack of attention he's now getting. Someone needs to tell AB about Worrell's 15 minutes. Yeah, that's really the case. Antonio Brown is an egomaniac. Antonio Brown is an attention whore. He is. And a lot of guys are. Big Ben's an attention whore. You could argue JuJu is an attention whore. I might even be in a lesser extent with a lot less attention on me. But JuJu Smith-Schuster is an attention whore. He wouldn't be doing all this activity on social media. Yeah, it's helping his post-playing career and giving him some money on the side. But he's an attention whore. He wants the likes. He wants the favorites. That's what some of these are. Okay? I'm not going to get fooled, guys. And he had a right to defend himself for sure, and I side with him on this. Antonio Brown had no right to just attack him for no reason, and it shouldn't have happened. It's immature, and it makes him look bad. But JuJu knew this would be popular. He's a very, very popular player, one of the most popular Steelers ever in only a few years, and he knew that was going to get some love. He knew this was going to get some love because he wasn't just the one response. It was in tweet after tweet after tweet. Keep your emotions off the internet. That got love. Then here with the Mark Twain picture and the Mark Twain quote and the little shaking my head above that. He knew that was going to get some love. JuJu is an attention whore. So, Jamie, I get it. This is about Antonio Brown as an egomaniac. This is about Antonio Brown being mentally unstable. Antonio Brown is wrong here in the battle with JuJu. It made no sense. It's unnecessary. Unlike in juxtaposition of Le'Veon Bell and how he's handling James Conner now that he's moved on. That's the way you should. That's the mature way. Le'Veon Bell handling this much better. I mean, even as I said it there, my tweet right there, in response to how Le'Veon Bell is handling it different and how you guys got to start treating them differently because they aren't the same. And Bell did handle his issue in Saga and drama better than Antonio Brown and is handling things way better now and with more class and maturity. Not perfect, but better in contrast to Brown. Okay, for sure. But I also don't want to get it twisted to think that Ben is not also an egomaniac. He loves us talking about him. That's why he throws jabs on his radio show. He doesn't give a you-know-what anymore. He knows he's a Hall of Famer, is standing with the team in his franchise. Doesn't care. And he wants the accolades. He loved 2 years ago when we were all wondering, is he going to retire or is he not? Loved all that. And then, Le'Veon Bell too. Le'Veon Bell is also an attention whore. But Antonio Brown, for sure, was concerned we were forgetting about him. Pittsburgh finally was forgetting about him. I had a problem with it. He wanted to drag up some memories of him. He wanted to continue the conversation. He's addicted to the drama. And eventually we'll have some drama with the Raiders and be addicted to it with them. But until that time, until he can have a bad game, they miss a pass, Derek Carr misfires at him, there's some war of words between him and Gruden. Gruden says something he doesn't like. The team loses too much. They don't give him enough numbers. Something. He'll figure it out. Until that drama occurs with him and the Raiders, he's going to be worrying about the drama with the Steelers. And there was a week or two where there was no drama. He's moved on. That was it. And, yeah, he wanted attention. He's an attention whore, so he sought that attention by throwing JuJu under the bus, blasting a screenshot from years ago where a college kid was looking for a professional for advice, somehow thought that would make JuJu look bad. It did not, because anybody in their right mind would know that wouldn't make JuJu look bad. AB is getting horrible advice, or people cannot control him, because I'd imagine they don't want him to do this anymore. Drew Rosenhaus and company, or the Raiders too, makes them look bad. But he's an attention whore, and he wanted the attention back, and he got it. Shows like this, the media coverage is back from Steeler Nation, from Pittsburgh. Steeler fans talking about him again because of the attack on JuJu. So they're all attention whores. JuJu's an attention whore too. Look at his Twitter. Look at his social media. I don't want to say there's anything that he's doing, all the good deeds that he's doing are selfless. There's some selfish good deeds in there too. And there's really no, this is a Friends episode for you. There's no selfless good deeds if you feel good about doing it and you get notoriety, you get fanfare, and you get accolades for doing it. That's not then a selfless good deed. I have a colleague and had a former boss that did a lot of good deeds, but they're not selfless if you want the fanfare and you do them with the goal of attention. That he often would say, I know this will get me this attention. I want that attention. Well, it's a great deed you're doing, but it's not selfless then. And they're all egomaniacs and want the attention, but they're not all throwing people under the bus. They're not all spitting on guys that looked up to you. They're not all slapping those in the face that respected you and treated you well previously. That's not all happening, okay? That's what Antonio Brown is doing. That's not what Le'Veon Bell is doing. Want to make sure to remind you to hit up Pittsburgh Sports Live on the YouTube channel. Make sure to click subscribe when you're there. Click subscribe right next to this episode and right down below, right there. Click on the subscribe button. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, at PGH Sports Live on Twitter, and also Steelers Now is on Twitter, at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter. You can follow myself at Mike Asti 11, where you can again send me the pats on the back as well as the hate mail, and I get them both. I do get them both, and I do check them. You can slide in those DMs. Just stay away from the threats. I get some of those, but they're not always appreciated, guys. Going to be mature about things. We can have the maturity that Antonio Brown does not have, and it appears Le'Veon Bell now does. And we can also keep our emotions off the internet. So keep your emotions off the internet. I tried to do that. I didn't do that years ago. AB can't. He physically can't. His emotions are on the internet. JuJu's are now, but it's in response to AB. And Bell and Connor, they're trying to handle this well. Shockingly. So stop comparing AB and Le'Veon Bell. They're handling these things totally differently. Bell handling it much better than Antonio Brown, without a doubt. I want to make sure to hit up SteelersNow.com for all of our NFL draft coverage, all of our activity there, SteelersNow.com, breaking news, analysis, these shows, Mike Truck episodes about the Steelers, all there, SteelersNow.com. And any of you, we got Beaver County Auto here for the studio, but any of you owners of businesses who want to get in contact with us, myself, Mike Vukova, can, also running Pittsburgh Sports Now, hit us up, find us, hit us up. There's my Twitter. Hit us up. We'll be happy to speak to you. So, Le'Veon Bell's moved on. I've moved on. Everyone else has moved on. Antonio Brown seemingly hasn't. Can't move on because he needs that attention. And, yeah, you can say I'm talking about him now, so I haven't moved on. It's only in reaction to him. If Antonio Brown can give us a few weeks here or a few months without anything about the Steelers, I'd love it. I'd appreciate it. And then I wouldn't bring him up. He blocked me after I said they should trade him, so I know he cares. That's what we want. Move on. Leave us alone. Can't do it, though. Can't do it. Just can't. He's an attention whore and just obsessed with the drama. But Le'Veon Bell, getting close to respecting how he's handling things. Got to be honest here. I respected his game, even though he was handling it wrong and I didn't like it. Now, I'm even moving to respect him a little bit more. He's actually handling things well. So stop grouping them together. Completely different. Okay.